Well, hello, Heather, the Lyme Boss. I'm thrilled to have you join me today to talk about your health success story and what you've learned along the way. I'm excited because you bring some really important insights that I think aren't talked about as much in the Lyme community. So I'm looking forward to digging into that.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dig into it with you. This is going to be awesome.
Cool. All right. So let's kind of go back to the beginning when it all started and you first started experiencing some health roadblocks, essentially.
Awesome. Yeah, I always ask people kind of jokingly, I'm like, how much time do we have? Because, I usually start at the beginning of I was basically born full of shit, right? Like I remember my first memories of like being 4 years old and sitting on the potty for so long that my feet would fall asleep because of how constipated I was. And
Wow.
yeah, and back then the doctors and my mom were just doing the typical kind of Western medicine type thing. Like, let's give her some gross, nasty oils. Let's give her some stool softeners and pat her on the head and send her on the way, not trying to figure out why this 4-year-old was so constipated, right?
Ugh.
Turns
Yeah.
out right around that time, my uncle had committed suicide and I was really close with him. And so that kind of started that whole wheels in motion of autoimmune triggers. Turns out I'm celiac. So it's part of the reason that
Mhm.
I was having those issues with constipation, but also the
Mhm.
early childhood trauma just kind of acted like a perfect storm, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was kind of your first experience of trauma affecting your physical health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, growing up in a very dysfunctional addict family, and then a lot of turmoil in my teenage years. So, then cue in like the perfect storm, right? Then I get bit by a tick when I was 13. Didn't have the traditional bullseye rash. Only 30% of people actually get that rash, so it's a very, misnomer that that's, the rash is the gold standard. Absolutely not. Did not get a
Mhm.
rash. Showed up with symptoms 2 years later with my first stint in the psych ward for a suicide attempt.
Ooh.
And yeah. And again, nobody was asking why this 15-year-old was trying to off herself. They would put me on
Mhm.
antidepressants, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, patted me on the head and sent me out the door again.
Mhm. Yeah. It's so interesting. Want to dig in here a little bit. So you didn't have obvious, yeah, like symptoms that most people would think would be associated with Lyme after that tick bite. It was expressing as sort of, mental health issues. Did that you remember, did you have anything else, or was it primarily the mental health?
Within the next couple of years, I started getting that chronic widespread pain. I got Lyme knee, which,
Mhm.
my right knee would swell up to 2 to 3 times its size. And of course, the
Mm.
doctors couldn't figure out why, and they told me I was fine. I was exhausted. I remember falling asleep in class every morning. After getting a good night's sleep, I'd get in trouble for falling asleep in class. It was ridiculous. Um, so a lot of gut dysfunction, a lot of inflammation, a lot of brain stuff, and pain. I remember my neck going out, my back going out on me for the first time when I was like 18 years old. I sneezed and my back went out on me and I couldn't come back up, and like I was locked for 3 days. I couldn't walk.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. And of course, again, people aren't asking why this 18-year-old, how did she throw out her back from a sneeze? Like, hello, people.
Yeah, you would expect that for someone, yeah, twice your age, maybe,
Right.
but
Yeah. So went to the chiropractor, and even, the chiropractors weren't, and nobody was looking deeper. They were just
Mhm.
like, yep, you're out, let's get you adjusted and get you put back and, patch me up and send me on my way.
Right, right, yeah. Uh, and so kind of how did it progress from there? Because I know it took you a very, very long time to get a diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a few more years after that. I got pregnant when I was 24, and a lot more symptoms reared their ugly head. I think, a lot of it is you've got so much resources going towards the baby. The baby itself is kind of like a parasite. right? So not only did I have Lyme and all these other issues, but now I've got something else taking a bunch of resources from me, and my teeth really took a beating at cavities every single time I went in to see the dentist. Again, nobody's, I'm flossing, I'm brushing, I'm doing all the things. And I keep asking them, why do I keep giving cavities? And, they put another filling in. Massive, massive brain fog. Oh, it was horrible. And cognitive stuff. And they just slapped another, oh, it's just pregnancy brain, it's just new mommy brain, dismissing the fact that I can't remember my childhood. Like, why is it I can't remember my childhood? Like that's not normal. Like other people remember even just little blips of their childhood, but mine was like gone. Like everything below the age of like 15 was just gone, erased. And again, nobody was taking me seriously. And, so I would couple more attempts at suicide, right? A couple more attempts at trying to see different doctors, different modalities to try to figure out what was wrong with me. Of course, they always looked at me and looked at my lab work and said, your lab work looks perfectly normal, when I felt anything but normal. And that went on up until I was 33, I believe. I was having another horrible episode, just wanting to give up. And a good friend of mine knew a physician's assistant in Denver who she thought could help. And she's like, have you contacted her yet? I said, no, but I'll do it. So I go and I drive to Denver, not, like whatever, this is a waste of freaking time. Within 5 minutes of talking to her, she gets like twinkle in her eye and she's like, I know exactly what's wrong with you. And I'm thinking, bullshit, lady. Like, I've seriously been here for 5 minutes. How could you possibly know? And she asked, have you been bit by a tick? I was like, yeah, I remember when I was 13, I pulled one out of my stomach. And she's like, let's do some testing. The traditional testing actually didn't give us the answers that we wanted. And it typically doesn't, especially in chronic Lyme cases. The testing is very inaccurate. I ended up getting a live blood analysis or dark field microscopy done to kind of confirm it. And then from there, I remember driving home from Denver on the highway, tears streaming down my face and screaming at the top of my lungs, I told you I'm not crazy, because it's like been my whole freaking life is slapped that stigma on me, which sucks because you might have like these small moments of insanity, right? But when you do that, people then label you and that's just all you become 24/7, which is really not fair, because 95% of the time I'm operating at a very high level. But, there was these few moments that I would have that I wouldn't. And it sucks to be labeled as such all the time when you're only that way part of the time. If that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And to not, to be in the place you were and for people to not take you seriously or, that is just, just makes it so much worse. It just compounds the challenge. So that was just, must have been incredible to finally have an answer for everything that had been going on for at least 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be writing my book this year, and that is going to be the title of my book. I told you I'm not crazy, the realities of Lyme disease, because it's just, I even put on a campaign not too long ago where I was making memes that said, we need to stop telling people that they're crazy, and we need to stop with that word. Maybe next time say your brain inflammation is showing, or something along those lines, because really it's a physical manifestation. We don't belittle people for diabetes or for cancer or for, any other illness. I'm not sure why it's okay to belittle someone over some mental health issues, especially when they're very much rooted in a physical manifestation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And with Lyme, there's going to have to be massive education and sort of a revolution, I think, of sorts, because feels like it's increasing so much.
A revolution. Yeah, that's what I'm here doing, man. I'm right there at the forefront screaming, hey, over here.
Yeah. And it's story after story like yours of conventional testing not finding it, and people just continue to struggle. So yeah, the world needs you. Absolutely. Telling your story and getting the education out there. So yeah, so kind of where did you go from there? You once you got that diagnosis, what did you try?
Jesus, what didn't I try? Most Lyme folks are, I mean, you talk about controversial, like chronic Lyme isn't even recognized still in a lot of medical communities. And so that's controversial.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to treatment, like some of the stuff that I tried, MMS, which is, chlorine dioxide, I mean, some crazy, really out of the box, weird stuff to try to combat this, which is sad because a lot of people do the same thing. And really what I've learned over the years is you got to go back to square one and you got to get your lifestyle stuff dialed in. And that sometimes these more crazy, elaborate, expensive treatments aren't needed, or they don't work as well because you don't have those foundations in place, right? I mean, I tell
Mhm.
people all the time, if they go to therapy and then they leave their therapist office and then they go eat McDonald's and they inflame their gut and they inflame their brain, right? Therapy and the drugs they put you on are only going to work, 10% compared to what more they could
Right.
work if you weren't inflaming your gut and your brain that way. And so, even some of these more expensive treatments might be warranted, but you'll definitely get a lot more bang out of your buck if you've got those foundations put down first. And it'll also lower your chances of relapsing. I've talked to some top people in the Lyme world, in some groups and some what's the word I'm looking for, like meetup groups, people who've been in this world for a long time. And I know they don't have the foundations down. And I'm constantly seeing them not being able to, like, I'm sorry, I didn't follow up. I've been sick. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do this. I'm having another flare up. I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. I can't get back to you. I'm having a flare up. And I'm like, it just makes me want to beat my head against the wall. I don't know why I'm still so sick. I know why you're still so sick. You're eating like crap. You're stressed out and you haven't put those foundations in place. Like,
Mhm.
but all I can do is lead by example, right? Like
Right.
I'm operating at a level that I didn't even know was possible, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Like it's a miracle. I'll be 45 in a couple months, and I've got more energy, more sex drive, more charisma, more creativity than I have in the past 20 years. Like, it's incredible.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Um, yeah, and really a testament to, what you're preaching about what's necessary to heal from Lyme. So, let me step back into what you just said. So, yeah, you did a lot of the conventional Lyme treatment, and it sounds like, did it help a little bit or not at all?
Oh, sure. Some things definitely helped a little bit, for sure, for sure. Um, some of it made you even worse, especially
Yeah.
with the traditional antibiotic method. And they put me on some anti-malarial drugs that I thought were going to kill me.
Oof.
And each time, I definitely brought my toxic burden down a notch, for sure. you know
Mhm.
and a lot of folks that I work with, after we get the foundations down, because I actually really like working with people who already have a Lyme literate doctor, because I'm not a doctor and I really would not want to play around with the treatment side of things, although I can use herbs, and I have. But really, get those foundations down first. And it's fascinating what then our own immune system does, right? And how it can then kick on, take over, breathe, and go, okay, I know what to do now. Like, we have literally
Mhm.
evolved with this microbe for thousands of years. Lyme is not something new. They found it in some Italian Alp guy that they, dug up from like 5,000 years ago. They found it in his system. So
Wow.
it's not something new, and our bodies and our immune system recognize it. So, a lot, it's like I said, it's amazing what happens when you remove the toxic burden off the body, get the foundations down right, get the mindset dialed in, get the diet dialed in, and what the body can do. I've got one testimonial
Mhm.
on my page, and she says it felt like a miracle. This was after like 3 weeks of working with her. just dialing in the foundations. Like, people dismiss the simplicity of the foundations, and really that's where a lot of the magic lies.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And so yeah, basically you were saying if you kind of go back to the foundations and kind of yeah, reduce the toxic burden on your body, improve your lifestyle, mindset, various aspects, then your body can kind of heal it on its own,
Ab-
essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, which is fascinating, and I think a really important point. So tell me what those foundations were for you, because I know there were various layers that you were needing to address of your own health.
Absolutely. And that's what I love doing the most. Like, I am a phenomenal, because it's Lyme patients are some of the most educated, amazing clients out there, because they have to be. They had to
Mhm,
become their own health advocate, which is beautiful. And so they have all these beautiful pieces, but they don't know what the picture is supposed to look like, and they don't know the steps. And that's like where I really shine, is being that like case manager of like, okay,
mhm,
so many times they're like, oh, I've done the diet, but if you did the diet, but you didn't have this other piece in place, like, you're not going to get the full benefits. Or, you've
mhm,
got to have that right combination for things to lock and open up and work. And so in FDN, we have what's called the Dress for Success model. It's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, and then I've added, well, so with that stress reduction is also some mindfulness, like brain retraining and nervous system retraining. Because if
mhm.
you're stuck in fight or flight all the time, and there's a tiger that's always out to get you, you can't heal when you're in fight or flight, right? You don't have a sex drive when you're in fight or flight. You don't digest when you're in fight or flight, because your body is only worried about getting away from the tiger. So I've put, the nervous system stuff, the mindset stuff, the trauma stuff mixed with, we also have to get the diet dialed in. We got to get your sleep dialed in. We got to get your exercise dialed in. We got to get your stress reduction dialed in these
Mhm,
orders. And then when that happens, like I said, that's when beautiful things happen.
mhm.
I've had one minor cold this year. I got COVID last year, kicked my butt for about 2 weeks. I had about 2 months worth of long haulers, but yeah, I bounced back from it pretty decently, considering, my background. I've reversed
Mhm.
2 out of 3 of my autoimmune diseases without being on medications. I'm not on any prescription drugs right now at all. So it's just, and I'm continuing to peel back more and more layers all the time. And the more and more I learn, the more and more I add to my course, right? And it just keeps getting more and more robust. But because I've worked really, 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 really hard at not being a hypocrite. Like, I absolutely walk the freaking walk.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
don't put my clients through anything that I haven't done myself, first and
Mhm.
foremost. Like, I remember when I first got my first ozone machine, like, I OD'd on all kinds of forms of ozone just to see if you could, right? So I'm like putting it up my butt, putting it in my vagina, in my ear. I ozonated oil and was eating that, like, all the ways. And yeah, I did find out you can you can OD. Like, I made myself sick. But that's just my level of commitment and passion to
Mhm.
this, that, like I said, I don't do anything, and I would never ask anything of my clients to do that I haven't done myself.
Right, right. And that's so valuable to bring to your work with clients is your personal experience with all of this, not just physically, but the mental emotional part of coming through it all. Absolutely. Yeah, so and what's interesting to me, you mentioned the other autoimmune diseases. You found out at some point that you were celiac. What other autoimmune diseases
Hashimoto's
popped
and
up?
endometriosis.
Oh,
Yeah,
yuck.
yeah. I was convinced that my uterus was trying to kill me from like the age of 15 on. But celiac's the only one I haven't been able to reverse, and I'm not sure you can. Kind of like type 1 diabetes. There's certain ones out there that you can reverse. It can get better. Things can improve for sure, but and I take everybody off of wheat. Like, we've changed it so much in this country that our body no longer recognizes it as food, and it's dripping
Mhm.
in glyphosate and other fungicides, pesticides. It's highly processed. So it's usually what we call the big bads. It's one of the top foods that kind of contribute to a leaky gut. And once you have a leaky gut, you have a leaky brain. And so people all the time, they're like, once I take them off the food, they're like, when can I go back to eating it? And I'm like, that never, like, that's part of the problem. That's part of what got us here to begin with. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me if I never reverse the celiac, because I'm not ever going to go back to eating wheat again anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, Hashimoto's, I got completely out of I got the antibodies down below the threshold. My hair came back amazing. I've got all kinds of great energy.
Fantastic. Awesome. So in terms of kind of the pillars that you mentioned to heal, some of those foundational pieces. So nervous system stuff. So what did you do, and what's been the most effective, I guess, for you and your clients in terms of kind of resetting the nervous system?
I love it. This one was like the most recent piece that I added to it, because I had a bit of a relapse a couple years ago. Because I kind of went back to my old lifestyle. I wasn't back to eating wheat, but I was drinking. I was a little more stressed out. I was eating more grains and a little bit more sugar than I should have. I think I had maybe let dairy back in. But I was back to being inflamed and angry. And my husband now looked at me and was like, I don't know what's going on with you. He's like, but I'm not going to be married to an angry person anymore. He's like, we got to figure this out. Like, I love you. I want to support you, but I can't do this. And it was kind of my wake up call. And wake up calls are good, folks. Like, we have some of these chronically ill people, and sometimes we have a tendency to go overboard to the point where we're enabling them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I see all the time. It drives me bonkers. It's like, no, they are capable of more than what you're allowing them to do, and you're actually allowing them to get away with murder. Like, I'm glad he stood up to me, because if not, I would have just been the same cycle continuing. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Brain retraining. So I knew I had it was from another FDN who told me, he's like, so you're out of the mold house, but mold especially is insidious for turning on the fire alarm bells in your brain. And even when you're out of the fire, nobody shuts off the alarms. So the alarms are still going off in your nervous system, right? Like, there's an active fire going on. And so he suggested to look into DRNS and heart math, neurofeedback. And then I started reading a book called The Body Keeps Score. And that's kind of where I started. I've also done some ayahuasca, so some plant medicine. Also went on a mushroom journey, so psilocybin. Let's see what else. Tapping, breath work. Breath work has been amazing to help my nervous system. Oh my gosh. And then somatic experiencing work was also one of my favorites. I used to follow this Dr. Amy Apigian. She's the biology of trauma. And these little simple exercises that could take, 30 seconds a day, a couple times a day. It was amazing after 23 days, how well it helped, retrain my nervous system. And then lately what I've been doing is I have a bioenergetic machine, and it scans a person's bioenergetic field. And then from that scan, it actually recommends a couple different supplements. And the supplements are made to act like, for lack of a better way of explaining, is like little mini downloads into your nervous system that kind of help unwind the unconscious patterning that we've been carrying for so long, like in a gentle, effective way. Like, me and my husband, he's a fire sign, I'm a fire sign. And so sometimes when we argue, it can get rather hot very quick. And we've both been doing this program, the bioenergetic stuff, for about 3 months now. And we got into a fight a couple nights ago. And for the first time ever, so he started going to the bad place. And I said, you need to calm down now. But I did it in a very calm, grounded way, to the point where he heard it, and I could watch him in front of me. He completely changed and snapped out of it. And we had a conversation. It was beautiful. We've never felt like that. What a blessing. I'm no longer flipping people off on the highway when I'm driving down the street, telling them they're number one. It's completely changed and given me back control over my emotions for the first time in my life. What that is.
Yeah, that's powerful.
right? And that's when
And
my
you're able, yeah, you're able to do this virtually.
yes, that's the other
Wow.
part of it. Is that's why I had worked with 5 different types of machines over the past 10 years. I've worked with Zyto, I've worked with Rife, I've worked with AO, I've worked with Healy, and all of them were phenomenal at the diagnostic part of it. But I never had much luck at getting, symptom relief from them, right?
Mhm.
Till I found Ness back in October. And then within like 2.5 months, I did over 90 scans and became a Ness practitioner. Like I went all in. And it's because of the results that I've seen in myself, my husband, my cat, and my other clients. Like I actually have testimonials. I was working with the AO for like 3 or 4 months, 15 different clients plus myself. And like, like
Yeah.
just barely scratching the surface to where this stuff is the real deal. I'm super excited about it.
How interesting. And is it NESS or like nest?
NES.
NES. Got it. What does that stand for?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, no worries. If they just call it NES, NES, that's fine. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's oh man, yeah, just Ness health.
I'm
It is
sure it's neuro something probably,
right.
maybe.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
No,
Yeah.
no, don't even worry about it. If they just call themselves an S. But yeah, I'd love to, yeah, include that in the show notes. Just, yeah, so people have that info and that reference. So interesting that you can do that virtually. It's kind of mind blowing to me.
It's rooted
But
in a lot of physics. Like when I became a practitioner, it was insane the amount of physics that I had to learn, and it was a little daunting. But yeah, it's a lot of it has to do with kind of like how a radio works, right? And how frequencies, and we're all energy. And so it's always been sad to me on one level. I've always understood this type of work on an intuitive level, but I have a hard time speaking about it eloquently. But I'm going to have to learn like really quick, because I'm going to be on a summit in like 2 weeks talking about
yeah.
bioenergetics. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it sounds like you have such good, clinical experience to report, for that summit, just, what you've seen and the power of it. Um, so how about mindset? Let's talk about the importance of mindset and kind of, what you recommend for folks to sort of get that healing mindset.
Yeah, like I go on a lot of these podcasts and I get asked, what's the number one thing that people blah, blah, blah. And, for the while there, I couldn't pick down what a one thing was, right? Because like I said, it's a lifestyle thing. It's multiple things, but really it's belief. And it's been sitting in front of my face the whole time. I can't believe I just figured that out, because it's even on my intake form. Like when a person first books a complimentary discovery call with me, one of the questions is, do you believe you can get better? And if you can't answer that with 100% yes, like don't waste your time, don't waste your money, like don't pass go, do not collect $200. Like if you do not believe you
Yeah.
can get better, there is not a damn
Yeah.
thing on this world, on this earth, that I can do to make you and so sometimes, yeah, I mean, so belief is number one. And a lot of ways that I'll work with folks is that bioenergetic stuff. So it actually will come up with some affirmations that are tailored to what it found for you in the scan. And so then I print them out and I put them on my mirror in my bathroom, and I make sure to say those to myself every day, because I grew up being told that I was fat, that I was stupid, that I wasn't going to amount to much, that I wasn't worthy, right? So to overcome those subconscious, because now they're just tapes playing in the background. Like I didn't even know they were running the show as much as they were. And so in order to disrupt a lot of that stuff, we have to put in new programming. And that's kind of what, these affirmations. It also makes a meditation specifically for you, for what it found in the scan. And so I listen to that meditation every day. I listen to the affirmations every day. And people are like, isn't that like brainwashing? I'm like, well, yeah, exactly. Because what's the definition of insanity, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If I want to be something different, I have to be something different. I have to show up differently. I have to change who I am in order to be what I want to be. And so it's no different with people trying to get healthier or build a business or be in a relationship, like whatever it is that you want out of life. You can't, Einstein says you can't fix a problem with the same energy that created it, right? So we got to look at things from a different perspective. We got to get a reframe on how we've always looked at things. If you ever want to if you want to bring something new into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that belief is so critical, and really why I'm doing also what I do, just to show that it's possible for people to heal. Because I agree, you have to believe that to be able to move forward. So Heather, it sounds like your health is fantastic today, and your maintenance protocol is still all the pillars, right? You've still got your diet dialed in. You've got,
and there's
focusing
it kills
on,
me. People are like, oh, what about a cheat date? And I'm like, why would listen to the words you're saying? Why would you cheat on yourself? Like, would you give your husband a cheat date for a cheat date? Right? Like, no. I don't play around with those head games like that anymore. Like, this is what I have to do to keep myself running, joyful, experiencing life. And I no longer, I also made another meme not too long ago that said, yes, my self-care feels like a part-time job, but it's better than being full-time sick. Like, mic drop, right? Like, so I now look at the stuff that I have to do every week, no longer as a burden, but as an act of love, of look what I get to do to take care of myself, right? Like, I do my sauna 3 times a week. I do a coffee enema once a week. I do skin brushing. I do, so many other things. And it can feel a little sometimes overwhelming, but like I said, for the most part, I actually really look forward to it now because I know how good I'm going to feel when I'm done.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I agree. And I got that question a couple of times over the holidays myself. Like, what happens if you cheat? What happens if you just have, one meal that's, not your typical meal. And it's not worth it, to me, after everything I have come from, to feel bad the next day, or even longer than that, for months. In the case of gluten, I would feel bad for months if I did
and
that.
People don't realize that, though. Like, one crumb is all it takes is to start that inflammatory fire, and it stays lit for 3 to 6 months. Like, that's how long it takes to overcome exposure to wheat. And that's not just if you're celiac, that's if you're gluten intolerant, which a large part of the chronically ill population are. Every single person I have tested that has come to me has tested positive for gluten reactivity, not full-blown celiac, but gluten sensitivity. Every single person. So
wow, that's crazy. And I don't think many people realize that.
No.
I think especially because it maybe doesn't manifest as they expect, like most people would expect,
they always
I don't
think it's
have
a digestive thing. I don't have a problem with my gut. And I'm like, do you have a problem with your brain? Are you inflamed? Are you in pain? Are you constipated? Are you, how's your hormones? What's your thyroid like? Oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with hyper or hypothyroidism. I'm like, there you go. Like, there it is. It's usually where your weak link in your genetics is kind of where that has a tendency to manifest. But yeah, it's fascinating. I had a client, God, other practitioners, it pisses me off sometimes. I had a client who found a practitioner that was smart enough to put them on the CellCore protocol, which was amazing. Like, if you've got a mold and Lyme person, it's a beautiful protocol, all in one, put together. She's at the end of this protocol and she's like, I don't think it works. I still feel like crap. I'm like, let's go back to the beginning. How are you eating? Oh, pizza and this and that. And I was just like, well, there's your problem. And she put me on it. And then like 3 months later went by and she went, you're right. I went off the food. I feel so much better. And I'm like, I know. Like, I've already been through my healing journey. Like, I don't try to convince people anymore. I just try to information, and then I let them do with it what they will, because I can't get too
Yeah.
caught up in their outcomes, because otherwise it'll drive me mad. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I had to laugh. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, she's doing an expensive cell core protocol, but yeah, the diet wasn't there. So that makes sense.
I want to find, and that practitioner probably doesn't know any better, because still, like, unless you've done an extra training on nutrition, like
Mhm.
doctors, naturopaths, like they still just don't have the training on nutrition. So they just don't get
Yeah.
how much of a crucial piece to healing it is. And even then, there's so many mixed, yeah, don't even get me started. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree for sure. Well, Heather, kind of considering your own journey and everyone that you've helped, any kind of advice we haven't talked about that you would add for someone who either has Lyme or suspects they have Lyme?
Um, Find a practitioner like myself that will help put all the pieces together for you and in a systematic order. If you get with a doctor, a practitioner, a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, and all they want to do is throw herbs, supplements, or antibiotics at you, run. If nobody is talking to you about the lifestyle stuff, run. Or if you love that practitioner and they're not talking to your lifestyle stuff, then you need to find a separate lifestyle person to help put those
Mhm.
pieces together. Because just like, all four legs on a table, if you don't have that one leg on that table, you're not
Mhm.
going to have complete and total success and be in remission and stay that way. So that's like my biggest pet peeve of, sometimes it does take a village. There's not a whole lot of practitioners out there who work like I do that have, put all those pieces together because of their own health journey. A lot of times it's just the
Mhm.
training in the background that they went through. And so they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
But I'm here to tell you that there's more than just treatment. And so it's like my biggest number one takeaway. Don't focus on treatment, period.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's an important message that I don't think you hear very often. So I appreciate that. So yeah, so Heather, yeah, your Lyme journey inspired a career change for you. And tell listeners, what FDN is and who you work with and how they can find and follow you.
Absolutely. So yeah, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. It's amazing. And then shit, and last year I became a bioenergetic practitioner. I became mold certified. I became certified in genetics and DNA. So yeah, a lot. But you can always find me at thelymeboss.com. Like, there's so much beautiful resources on that website. There's a free link to get my free download, which is a cooking course. Because I had the biggest issue I had with folks is, like, when I'm talking to them about dialing in diet, they're like, I don't know how to cook, And so, okay, well, I do love to cook. I love spending time in the kitchen. I love getting creative, because people all the time, when I tell them I'm dairy free, gluten free, grain free, so I'm basically paleo, and
Mhm.
corn free. And
Yep.
what do you eat? And so I kept getting that question. I'm like, my God, we eat so good. Like, the food that I make is amazing. And so it's this video series of teaching you how to make delicious meals under 20 minutes or less. Like, it's ridiculous.
Ooh.
But yeah, so you get access to that. And then, I love to do, like I said, I give everybody a free 40-minute consult to, let's just see if I'm a right fit or not, right? Let's see if I can help pull your pieces together in the right picture that you're looking for. And we, move forward from there. So it's always no risk, right? Free,
Mhm.
easy.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds so great. I'm going to have to check out your cooking resources there because I have pretty much the exact same diet that you do. So
Yes.
and always looking for more ideas because yeah, gets a little boring making the same stuff all the time. So
Oh, absolutely.
um well, Heather, thank you so much. This has been so interesting and educational, and I know folks will get a lot of value out of it. And I really appreciate you
Thanks
coming
for
on.
having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care.
You too.